Hello, and welcome to the OT Meeting Room. I'm Deborah Battistella, your host. Here we talk about all things occupational therapy. It's been a while since I've made a video, and I've been super inspired lately. Thought I'd come back and give it a shot again. A lot has been happening in the year or more since I made a video and put it on my channel. And I'm going to update you on what's happening. And we're going to talk about what has been happening and what is happening, and the topic battery low, please charge now. The other day, I was doing things around the house and listening to one of my favorite YouTubers. And in the middle of a good part, I hear battery low, please charge now from my Bluetooth speaker. And I thought I could just keep going, but apparently the battery was very low because the message kept repeating itself over and over again. And then I got into this part of me where I thought, I don't want to stop what I'm doing to take the time to pause the video, plug in the speaker, and keep listening. And I think we do that sometimes in life. If I would have kept going, the speaker would have shut down because it didn't have enough power left in the battery to keep going. And I would have ended up having to pause anyway. So I think this is an important message for us as OT practitioners to remember to charge our battery. And so I'm going to talk to you about what fuels a person so that we can keep our battery charged. And in that, it's just a little update as to what I've been doing. If you're not aware, I started a podcast with researcher and author Peter G. Levine. Pete wrote the book, Stronger After Stroke, Your Roadmap to Recovery. And that book, it really informed my practice for many years. After I discovered it, I worked in a stroke center. And so his book informed my practice. And I also shared that book with my clients and their family members because it's such an easy to understand book that we can give it to people. It helps us understand, but it's also for the layperson. It's written in very understandable language. And there was a part in his second edition of his book that spoke right to my heart as a practitioner. Essentially, he told clients that you will get whatever therapy your therapist knows about. That was an inspiration to me to make sure that I kept up to date on the most recent evidence and the strategies that work to help people recover for stroke. And I also took that information and applied it to my entire practice. So that's about Pete. So Pete and I, we connected. We didn't know each other. We connected through email. We met through Zoom, decided to start a podcast, which put me way outside of my comfort zone. And I think it put him outside of his comfort zone too, because we were both a little nervous starting it, but we were a great team. We had great conversations on that show. Pete passed away in January. The podcast is still going on though, because that's what he wanted. And I'm having a blast with it. And I'm really glad that that was his desire. So that's what I've been doing. So I've learned that podcasting, it takes a considerable amount of time. And I had to learn a lot to do that. And then once Pete passed away, I had to learn the editing end because that was his responsibility. We both did a ton of research. We always research before our episodes. We bring in the research in our conversations. We share links to articles or article titles in the podcast. So there was a little effort involved in that. And you can see here in this talk that I have notes in front of me. So not having notes in front of me or with me is something that can keep me from moving forward in what I do. And I was able to have notes for the podcast because we only used voice for that. And I was kind of stuck with the YouTube videos because I was moving forward with them in a strictly educational content delivery manner. And that was easy for me because I could share my screen and have notes and kind of hide behind that. Well, I don't want to do that anymore. I want us to continue learning and growing as OT practitioners, and I want to do my part to help that happen. And so in batteries, low, please charge now fashion, I've got my notes here. I'm going to speak a little bit to each topic, and then we'll move on, and hopefully you'll feel inspired to do a little something more for your vision today. So, okay, let's see. So I told you that I did this podcast. I started it with Pete. Pete passed away. If you want to know more about that, check out the Noggins and Neurons podcast. It is all about brain injury recovery. And starting in January, there are some episodes where I shared my story about meeting him and about what happened with him and his life. So because I love analogies, and because this one came to me, and I learned that I can get through life with it being a whirlwind and still have myself recharged, I thought I have to talk about some of this stuff and why it's important for us to know what charges our battery and what drains our battery. So thinking about ourselves in terms of energy, looking at the work that we do and knowing how it feeds us. Does it feed us? And if it doesn't, identifying parts of it that don't, and then making decisions to move forward. So I learned 2 lessons from doing the podcast. And I want you to think about something that you have done in your life where you were afraid to do it and yet learned from it, and maybe learned that it's something that you love or not, and that's okay. But we're always learning from the things that we do. 2 things that I learned from doing the podcast. Number 1, that I'm not dumb. I always had this idea about myself, this misconception, I guess, that I carried around about myself, that I'm not that smart. And I let that hold me back a lot. And so as I would go through listening to the podcast to write the show notes, because writing the show notes was my responsibility, and I would listen to our conversations, especially some of those conversations where I didn't feel as solid and strong in content, I learned that I did know what I was talking about, and I sounded like I knew what I was talking about because I did. And I was having fun, and I didn't have a memory of that. So sometimes I do think that our brains lie to us, and it's really important to get other people's perspectives or our own perspectives. If there is the opportunity to record yourself, I highly recommend it. As uncomfortable as it may make you feel in the beginning, it will help you learn to like yourself a whole lot more. And I think that's really important as providers and practitioners, that we are able to continue to grow in who we are and bring our best selves to the people that we serve. So that was one thing that I learned, that I'm not dumb. And the second thing that I learned is the importance of going for something and living large. Pete loved doing the podcast. He wrote the book. He was a musician. He did all these things that he wanted to do in life. And when he passed away, I had such a giant realization about why it's really important to do things now. If you're anything like me and you have this notion or this idea that, well, when I get really good at this thing, then I will do that. Or then I can. Once I become this, then I will become that. Then I can do that. Well, it's in the doing that we become. So when Pete died, this realization that I have to do the things that I want to do now is really important, because I am here now. And don't get me wrong, I am aware that people die. People have been dying my entire life. I've had death losses since I was a young child. And for some reason, I still stayed in that mindset, excuse me, I still was remained in that mindset of in the future. And I think that Pete's passing and this project that we undertook really helped me develop a healthier relationship with time and doing the fun things for myself. I highly recommend, if there's something that you've been wanting to do, just find it in yourself, find a little belief in yourself to take a step for it. You will thank yourself for that, and the people that you are bringing your gift to will thank you for it. So through that, I learned two really important lessons that have helped me to be able to show up better in life, and that actually give me energy and help me feel like I'm thriving in life. That's point number one. I love analogies. That's why they're here. And so I ask you, what is it that you want? And what is it that you can do to move you towards what you want? And I did stick this picture of Pete and I on here to demonstrate the amount of fun that we had doing this podcast together. That was a snippet, a little picture that he took from our very first episode that we recorded, and he put that on our podcast website, and it stays there to this day. And I love it as a reminder every time I go there to share a link, or if I need to go onto the website to upload a new episode, I see the joy that we had when we were doing this together. And I do think that reminders are really important. Okay, so moving forward, as OT practitioners, what can we do to help ourselves recharge our batteries? I have 3 points here, and I will speak briefly about them. So the first thing for me is accountability and acceptance. Now, this is a philosophy that I ascribe to, and these are just suggestions. You don't have to do them, but perhaps something I share with you will resonate and you may want to adopt something or just try it out. So when I think about accountability, I think about 100% accountability. And for me, that means if I'm involved in anything, then I need to be accountable for myself and for the actions that I take. And I also need to accept myself right here, right now, where I am, whatever has happened or is happening around me, or, that I'm a part of. Going back to that 100% accountability, I play a role in. And just looking at that and looking at my life and identifying what are the parts of my life that I love, what are the parts that I don't love. And here for this recording, I'm speaking to the work life, the occupational therapy provision that you do, however you're providing services to people or products. If you're an entrepreneur, let's keep this just to occupational therapy and work-life balance types of things. So I look at all of these things, and I sometimes I make a list, or sometimes I just sit and think about these things, and I think about how they make me feel. So I don't think, but I feel it. I feel it in my body. And I just ask myself questions like, if this doesn't feel good, what doesn't feel good about it? If this feels great, what about this makes me feel great? And some things that I come up with are like, if it doesn't make me feel good, it's, well, maybe I'm not working to my potential, or maybe I'm not participating to my skill, or, maybe I just feel like I need to start over, and taking a look at those things. And when it comes to acceptance, it's, this is how I feel, and it's okay. This is what's happening right now. And, that's where I'm at. But when I find something that I love, I follow the same process. So I ask myself, well, why is it that I get excited about doing this? How do I feel when I feel excited? And again, 100% accountability because I showed up for that. And it helps me for some reason. This is helping me to be okay with the work that I do. And when I look at the things that I love, I ask myself, well, how can I do more of those things? Because those things really make me feel energized. And the things that I don't love, sometimes they make me feel heavy and low, or like I don't want to do them, you know. And I want to live my life on purpose. And so you probably want to live your life on purpose too, I'm assuming. And so this is one way to help live your life on purpose. So becoming aware of those things that fuel your soul passion, that give you energy and make you want to do what you do every day. So think for yourself. This my suggestion to you, or my challenge to you, is to look at yourself, look at your life, and where can you be? How are you accountable? And how do you accept yourself? Are you accountable? And are you accepting yourself? Just trying that. And using that information to inform choices that you make, making an informed choice. Okay, now let's talk about boundaries. I think boundaries are important because I have been one of those people that has not had any boundaries around myself at times in my life. And when I do that, then I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm not even sure how to show up. So for me, boundaries can look like giving myself time every day where I'm not interacting with other people. I find a lot of interactions drain my energy. Even though I enjoy doing it, it can make me feel tired. So giving myself some time to unwind, to read a book, to take a walk, to maybe just watch a movie. That's one type of boundary. Another type can be with taking on too many projects. And for me, it's been challenging because, like I mentioned already, I didn't really have a good relationship with time or understanding how much time and energy I would have to invest in a project. It's okay. It's a learning curve and it's good learning. So deciding on the number of projects that you would like to take on, not volunteering for everything. And sometimes it's just practicing saying no. And I have the most amazing business coach, and she taught me this concept that, you know, when you say yes to things, you're saying no to something else. And so if you're saying yes to a lot of external things that don't have anything to do with the goals that you want to achieve, you may be getting in your own way. And if you're the kind of person that feels the need to say yes to everything, then maybe take a look at that and think about why you say yes to so many things. And if it's to be liked or to feel needed, then take a step back from that and maybe just practice saying no to some things, especially if you find yourself feeling resentful towards some of those things that then you feel like you need to do because you committed to doing them. I wanted to say one more thing about boundaries. Oh, if you constantly overstep the boundaries that you give yourself, it can lead you to feeling drained and not re-energized. And so it's okay to take a step back and just giving yourself permission to look at your life, where it is and where you want it to go, and giving yourself permission to try, try strategies. And if the strategy works for you, continue doing it. If the strategy doesn't work, let it go and try another one, but giving yourself the space and the time to try it. And lastly, I want to talk about the power of practice. So whatever it is that you're doing, so when it's new, it can feel like practice. And if you're learning something new, you have probably experienced this before. When you're learning something new, when you first try it, it can be a little scary, it can be a little unnerving, and you might fumble around a bit. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. And when you do things from a learning mindset and giving yourself the opportunity to practice, you start feeling empowered and you start feeling like you have a higher skill level, you gain more confidence, you have more clarity. And as you make those moves and you continue to grow and expand, you can continue to change. And that is what has really been such a source of fuel for me in terms of my own personal energy and my occupational therapy practice. I love occupational therapy, and I do think it's the greatest profession in the world. Anybody who knows me knows that. I'm all about a collaborative effort as well, and moving into more of a collaboration type of mindset. That's not the topic of this video, but just thinking about these concepts, the power of practice, giving yourself the opportunity to engage and feeling the struggle. And where do you do that in your life? Where would you like to do that in your life? And how does that impact you as a professional? Those are my questions for you. So as occupational therapy practitioners, what can we do when our battery is low to recharge now? Look at how you view accountability and look at how you view acceptance. Are there ways that you can view those topics to help yourself show up in a way that makes you feel alive? What are your boundaries? Do you have boundaries? Do you keep your boundaries? If you decide to expand a boundary or maybe break a boundary, where do you do that? And can you do it mindfully? Are you being mindful with your boundaries? And lastly, do you give yourself the opportunity of power through practice? Where are you practicing and learning and growing and achieving mastery over some things? I hope you found this video helpful. Please continue to watch, share the video with colleagues if you found anything informative and helpful for your practice. And here at the OT Meeting Room, I just want to talk about that for just a little bit. This is a place for occupational therapy practitioners where we can share knowledge, translate that knowledge, process it for practice, where we can inspire imperfect action, where we help each other take those steps. There's no perfection in life, and so we're all about imperfect action here. This channel is different from the Noggins and Neurons podcast. Noggins and Neurons is a conversation with everybody from the audience and the people who serve our audience. However, there's a lot of that podcast that is educational in nature, and I would like this to be more action-oriented and like that, what I already said, like inspirational, and where we know what to do next in our practices, where we help each other do that. For now, I encourage you to give yourself permission to try something. I'm giving myself permission to continue making YouTube videos. It makes me happy. I love talking about things related to occupational therapy. And like I said in the beginning of this video, my mission is to make OT the most requested therapy. And now I'm sitting here second guessing myself. Did I even say that at the beginning of this video? Maybe I didn't. So if I didn't, the mission here is to make OT the most requested therapy. Here are two links, Noggins and Neurons podcast link and Creative Concepts website link. And I will put information about Pete's book in the notes. I will put this information in the notes for today's recording. Thank you for sticking with me. Make it a great day.